right, so today you guys are going to be in 8A, Perspectives and Narratives. You'll click Subunit 3, Narrative Writing, and Lesson 3, Speeding Up and Slowing Down. Our overview of today is, imagine what it would feel like to be in the middle of an aerial dogfight. Planes, some friendly, some not, are swooping and diving and buzzing all around you like angry bees. You're doing your best to avoid colliding with another aircraft, looking for an enemy to shoot down and trying not to get shot out of the sky yourself, all at the same time. In this lesson, this is the final one that features passages from Roald Dahl's Going Solo. We'll closely read a scene from the Battle of Athens, the 20th of April, in which Dahl describes a dogfight that stands out like a sheet of flame in his memory. You'll focus on analyzing two specific parts of this scene, Dahl's description of the inside of the cockpit and his narration of the action in the sky. We'll also explore language, structure, and techniques that Dahl used to convey his feelings in this exhilarating scene. He makes two distinct moves to capture this moment. He slows down time to give us a precise technical picture of the cockpit of his fighter plane. And he also shows us what it feels like to be in the middle of a fast-paced aerial gunfight. So we will be looking at speeding things up and also slowing things down. You guys will click on Activity 1. And as usual, you guys will open your vocab app and work on your vocab for 5 minutes. For Activity 2, you guys will listen to the audio of this text and evaluate the level of tension in paragraph 18. So before we read, I want you guys to look at this poll. In paragraph 18, Dahl sets the stage for the battle that is about to begin. How tense does it seem like this scene will be? And you have 5 options. Not tense at all, a little tense, somewhat tense, very tense, or extremely tense. Then you will also choose a quote from this paragraph that makes you think so. You will copy it and then explain your thinking. So keep these in mind as you read this excerpt.
On that morning of the 20th of April, Flight Lieutenant Patel, the ace of aces, who was leading our formation of 12 hurricanes over Athens, was evidently assuming that we could all fly as brilliantly as he could, and he led us one hell of a dance around the skies above the city. We were flying at about 9,000 feet, and we were doing our very best to show the people of Athens how powerful and noisy and brave we were, when suddenly the whole sky around us seemed to explode with German fighters. They came down on us from high above, not only 109s, but also the twin-engine 110s. Watchers on the ground say that there could not have been fewer than 200 of them around us that morning. We broke formation, and now it was every man for himself. What has become known as the Battle of Athens began. I find it almost impossible to describe vividly what happened during the next half hour. I don't think any fighter pilot has ever managed to convey what it is like to be up there in a long-lasting dogfight. You are in a small metal cockpit, where just about everything is made of riveted aluminium. There is a plexiglass hood over your head and a sloping bulletproof windscreen in front of you. Your right hand is on the stick, and your right thumb is on the brass firing button on the top loop of the stick. Your left hand is on the throttle, and your 2 feet are on the rudder bar. Your body is attached by shoulder straps and belts to the parachute you're sitting on, and a second pair of shoulder straps and a belt are holding you rigidly in the cockpit. You can turn your head and you can move your arms and legs, but the rest of your body is strapped so tightly into the tiny cockpit that you cannot move. Between your face and the windscreen, the round orange-red circle of the reflector sight glows brightly. Some people do not realize that although a hurricane had 8 guns in its wings, those guns were all immobile. You did not aim the guns, you aimed the plane. The guns themselves were carefully sighted and tested beforehand on the ground so that the bullets from each gun would converge at a point about 150 yards ahead. Thus, Using your reflector sight, you aimed the plane at the target and pressed the button. To aim accurately in this way requires skillful flying, especially as you are usually in a steep turn and going very fast when the moment comes. Over Athens on that morning, I can remember seeing our tight little formation of hurricanes all peeling away and disappearing among the swarms of enemy aircraft. And from then on, wherever I looked, I saw an endless blur of enemy fighters whizzing towards me from every side. They came from above, and they came from behind, and they made frontal attacks from dead ahead, and I threw my hurricane around as best I could, and whenever a Hun came into my sights, I pressed the button. It was truly the most breathless and, in a way, the most exhilarating time I have ever had in my life. I caught glimpses of planes with black smoke pouring from their engines. I saw planes with pieces of metal flying off their fuselages. I saw the bright red flashes coming from the wings of the Messerschmitts as they fired their guns, and once I saw a man whose hurricane was in flames climb calmly out onto a wing and jump off. I stayed with them until I had no ammunition left in my guns. I'd done a lot of shooting, but whether I had shot anyone down or had even hit any of them, I could not say. I did not dare to pause for even a fraction of a second to observe results. The sky was so full of aircraft that half my time was spent in actually avoiding collisions. I'm quite sure that the German planes must have often gotten into each other's way, because there were so many of them, and that together with the fact that there were so few of us, probably saved quite a number of our skins.
Right, so your poll asks you specifically about paragraph 18. So you can use the scroll bar to find paragraph 18. So it's this paragraph. So do you think, when you read that, do you think the scene will be not tense at all, a little tense, somewhat tense, very tense, extremely tense? Then you will also choose a quote from this paragraph that makes you think that this will be tense. So from paragraph 18, what makes you think that this will or will not be tense? You will copy and paste it in this box, and then you will say why. Explain why you think that. Once you are done, you will click Hand In and move on to activity 3. And so now you are going to be looking at paragraphs 19 and 20. The first question asks you to look at the first word of every sentence in paragraph 19. So use your scroller bar to find paragraph 19. What do you notice about how the first 2 sentences start compared to how most of the other sentences start? So the first words are I, you, their, your, you. So the first 2 sentences how are these different than the rest of the sentences? What is different about the first word? And think. We learned about reading like a writer in lesson 1 of this unit. If you're reading like a writer, think about why might Dahl choose to make this switch after the first 2 sentences? Once you are done with that, you can click Next. And we're still looking at paragraphs 19 and 20. What kinds of details does Dahl include in paragraphs 19 and 20? You will describe these details. So I will give you guys an example. You cannot use my examples. I am going to say that Dahl used telling sentences And then now I have to copy and paste 2 examples of these details below. So you can list more than one detail, but an example of this that I'm going to copy and paste is some people do not realize that although a hurricane had 8 guns in its wings, those guns were all immobile. And immobile means that they cannot move. So this is a telling sentence because Dahl says specifically they had 8 guns in its wings and they were all immobile. If someone is telling you something, you don't have to infer and guess on what they mean. So Dahl told me exactly there's 8 guns and they didn't move. So you guys cannot use my example, but you guys will find some other examples of details that were used. Think about some of the writing details that we thought about in our last subunit. Then you'll copy and paste 2 examples of these details in this box. Once you're done, you will hit save and continue. Your third activity. Does Dahl seem to be speeding up or slowing down time in these paragraphs? So skim over them. When you read this, do you feel like this moment is taking forever, or do you feel like it's going by really fast? You decide, and you will pick one of these 2 options and click hand in down at the bottom. Also, to give you guys a little bit of background on what the cockpit of a Hawker Hurricane looks like, this is what the plane looks like. And this is what the inside of the plane looks like. The inside of the plane is called a cockpit. As you can see, there are a lot of things inside of this plane. There's a lot of gauges. Dahl does describe it as being cramped. After looking at this picture, I can imagine that it's a pretty tight space in there, especially if you're a tall person. It's a lot of knobs. It's a compass. If you guys would like to look at these photos, they are from the National Museum of the United States Air Force. And as you can see, this is Hawker Hurricane. So you can go ahead and click next on activity 4. And we are going to be reading about the dogfight. We will be looking specifically at narrative elements in paragraph 21 and consider the effects this passage is meant to have on the reader. So our first activity, we're going to choose 5 of the most vivid verbs in this passage and then list them here. And verbs are an action. What is someone doing? And we want vivid verbs. So I can remember seeing our tight little formation of hurricanes. Seeing is a verb, but I would not say that that is a very vivid verb. However, little formation of hurricanes all peeling away and disappearing among the swarms of enemy aircraft. I would say that peeling is a vivid verb because I can imagine if you're peeling a banana, it's all happening very slowly. So all of these planes, they're coming apart off the edges and they're getting smaller and smaller. You guys can use this one if you would like. You guys will then come up with 4 more vivid verbs from this passage, and then you will list them. And then you will answer, what feelings or ideas do you get from these verbs? So I answered that I imagine the fleet of planes is getting smaller because they all peel away. And you guys will do the same thing for all of your verbs. Then you will choose 3 of the most vivid images and paste them here. So you will find an example that is vivid. So I might say, I saw the bright red flashes coming from the wings of the Messerschmitts as they fired their guns. And I think that's a pretty vivid picture, so I'm going to paste that there. You guys can use my example for this one. You guys will then have to choose 2 more vivid images and paste them in this box. Then think about, why do you think Dahl chooses to string together so many different images instead of spending more time describing just 1 or 2? Why would he choose to describe action after action after action after action? Why not just focus on 1? And when you're done, you can hit save and continue, go on to the next activity. And you will answer this poll, does Dahl seem to be speeding up or slowing down time in this paragraph? If you think that it's happening very slowly, you'll say that it's slowing down. If you feel like it's going by really fast, you'll click speeding up. Once you're done, make sure that you click hand in. I would also like to show you guys a short clip of a dog fight. Dog fight is an aerial fight where planes are flying at each other and a lot of different things are happening. So take a minute to watch this video. I hope that it creates a bit of imagery for you guys so you can imagine what a dog fight looks like. This is from the movie Dunkirk.
Check fuel, porters 1 and 2. 70 gallons. 68 gallons, Fortis leader. Stay down at 500 feet to leave fuel for 40-minute fighting time over Dunkirk. Understood. Vector 128, Angels point 5. And keep an eye on that gauge, even when it gets lively. Save enough to get back. Dunkirk's so far, why can't they just load at Cali? The enemy had something to say about it. Down here we're sitting ducks. Keep it peeled, they'll come out of the sun. Found it, 11 o'clock. Break. He's on me. I'm on him. 2, join left. 3, 2, 1. Clear. Is he down? Yeah, he's down for the count. For this leader, 1 bandit down. For this leader, do you read? For this 2, I have you on my port. I have no eyes on for this leader. Over. Understood, for this 1. Orbit for a look.
I hope that that clip helped tell you what a dogfight actually looks like. You guys can go on to activity 5. So here we are going to compare paragraph 19 and paragraph 21 and talk about how these passages work together. So you're going to compare the verbs in paragraph 19 and paragraph 21, and then write 1 sentence to describe the verbs in each paragraph. So in paragraph 19, we have verbs like, you can turn your head, you can move your arms and legs, the rest of your body is strapped so tightly. We really don't have a lot of verbs in paragraph 19, and the verbs that we do have are not very strong verbs, whereas in paragraph 21, they made frontal attacks. I threw my hurricane around. It was the most exhilarating time I have ever had in my life. I caught glimpses of planes with pieces of metal flying off their fuselages. I once saw a man whose hurricane was in flames climb calmly out onto a wing and jump off. I had done a lot of shooting. I did not dare to pause for even a fraction of a second. Half my time was spent in actually avoiding collisions. What's different about the verbs that we see in paragraph 19 versus the verbs we see in paragraph 21? You'll write a sentence about 19, a sentence about 21. Then you'll do the same thing in number 2, except now you're comparing images. So you have a picture that pops into your head when you think about paragraph 19. Think about what picture pops into your head, and then compare it to what picture pops in your head when you read paragraph 21. Whatever picture pops into your head, you're going to compare the 2 of them and write 1 sentence about each of them. So describe an image here and describe an image here. And then again, if we are reading like writers, why do you think that Dahl includes both of these passages when narrating the Battle of Athens? Why not just use one or the other? These are 2 very different passages, but they're about the same event. Why do you think that he chose to include both of these in his passage? Once you've done that, you can click Hand In. Next, we are going to answer this poll question. Does Dahl manage to vividly describe what it's really like to be in a dogfight? You'll say yes, somewhat, or no. Then you'll answer, What details do you think he left out? And why do you think that he did leave them out? So you guys have an example. I gave you an example through a video what a dog fight might look like. Knowing that, what do you think might be missing? Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and click Hand In. So for your exit ticket, you are going to read each passage, decide if the structure of the passage slows down or speeds up the narrative, then match each description of the technique that doll uses to the correct box. So you will read this first passage. It is from paragraph 19. And then you will have to decide, does he speed up the narrative by briefly describing a lot of action-packed images that he can see outside the cockpit of his Hurricane, or does he slow down the narrative by pausing the action to explain what the reader would see and feel inside a cockpit? You can drag and drop these in your box. If you decide, oh, I didn't want that, you just drag the one that you want into your box. Then you'll click Hand In when you're done. Your solo activity tells you to read for 20 minutes. You guys should be reading for an hour a week outside of English class anyway. I encourage you guys to be reading because your book project is coming up sooner rather than later. Make sure that you are thinking about that. And with that, you guys are done for the day. I hope that you guys have a great day.